listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
Welcome into the GM Shuffle. DraftKings, the crown is yours. I'm Geoff Schwartz, 8 years National Football League. Marty, Hurney, 30 years NFL front office. We are making our way to start of the National Football League season. I don't know about you, Marty. I'm watching some World Cup soccer, and not the biggest soccer guy. Just watch, when we have these big events, and the passion that we're seeing from the fan bases of the countries, from our country, from just the social media community when it comes to these games. It's got my juices flowing for some American football, some national football, at least some college football, Marty. I'm ready for football to start now. I think I'm ready for it to go. Let's go. Come on.
I am too. But you know what the World Cup proves, Geoff? Winning solves everything. You think that the way the U.S. has played has the whole country on the edge of their seats.
I know.
That's what winning does. Winning solves a lot of problems, and it's neat. It's neat, the excitement it creates.
The USA coach, who's I believe Argentinian, made a comment about how basically our sports culture rewards losing, and that we need to have relegation, specifically in soccer, and that would help our athletes essentially have a punishment for losing. I'm not sure I agree with that in the NFL. I don't think that the NFL really rewards losing. I mean, you can draft with a better draft pick. Maybe that's what reward losing is. But I will say, if you lose long enough, you get fired, right? I get fired. We don't keep our jobs. I don't know if that applies quite across American sports. I understand the sentiment, basically saying like, hey, man, we're kind of soft maybe. We allow losing to continue without any sort of punishment as far as your team moving up and down a division, which certainly matters, obviously, in English football. But I just don't think that applies to the NFL, Marty. Losing is terrible. I mean, the reward in one season can be you get a new quarterback, but it doesn't always work. But man, I thought that was interesting, him coming over here. He's done a great job coaching our team. Our team looks really good at soccer, saying that essentially we might be a little bit soft here for not punishing losing in our sports communities.
Well, you might call it soft, but parity is what has made the NFL what it is, right? Every team thinks, every fan base 3 weeks out in the season still thinks they had a chance, or most of them. And I think that's it. It's a business type decision. I'm not sure you reward losing by giving the worst team the first pick. I think you do help them rebuild and make the sport better. The NFL goes off the philosophy of 32 is one, and what's good for one is good for all of the other 31, and I think that's what makes it such a success. Soccer may be different. I don't know enough about it, but I know I'm enjoying the heck out of watching the World Cup.
Relegation would be fun if we had enough football teams to do it. Basically, essentially, Marty, like imagine you have 2 NFL leagues, right? Let's say you have 2 like 20-team leagues, and week 17, I don't know, Cleveland and Arizona are playing a game, and losers got to go down a division. It would make it pretty fascinating. That game wouldn't matter. I mean, you basically would try to lose until you would try to win that game. I have a friend of mine who has suggested this forever, Marty, that for the number 1 draft pick, we actually have a loser bowl. So like the worst 2 teams in the NFL play each other like the week of like wild card week. I don't know when it would be. The week we have no football between, conference championship game and the Super Bowl, they play a game, and the winner of that game gets the first pick in the draft. I mean, we could spice up a little bit.
This last 30 seconds just reminded me of sitting in a coach's meeting and listening to these guys say all kinds of crazy stuff that'll never happen. And I'm sitting here thinking, well, I'm going to eat for lunch. But
what do you think we did in the locker room? We just sit there all day.
It ain't happening. You don't want to relegate teams. They're different sports,
never.
Different games.
No, never going to happen. All right, our path for today, we're going to talk about surprise Super Bowl teams in a little bit here. We have 5 for sure, and we'll kind of talk about a couple teams that may or may not count. We'll give you the odds on DraftKings of where those teams stand right now for surprise Super Bowl teams. But first, more Brendan Sorsby discussion here. The Texas Tech quarterback has been basically thrown out of Texas Tech. This happened, I think, right after we finished recording our show on Monday. Of course, that's what always happens. He's no longer Texas Tech. He's going to try to enter the supplemental draft. The deadline is very soon. His attorneys had to go to court Marty, to basically reverse the decision that made him eligible, because you have to be ineligible to play college football to be in the supplemental draft. We have not had a draft in years, Marty, just from the base level. Are they going to hold a supplemental draft for Brendan Sorsby?
TBD, to be determined. I think that they don't have to make a decision the next month. That they can say, listen, because of your past, we're investigating it. We're going to hold off. We're not going to let you enter the supplemental, and we'll push back to next year. I don't know whether they're going to do that or not. If they do that, then they're probably getting lawsuit from Sorsby's people, the NFLPA, who they are currently negotiating with the NFLPA on a new CBA. They won an 18-game season. So is this a battle that they want to get into? That's what they have to decide when they make the decision. Okay, do we let him enter the draft? Now, if he enters the supplemental draft, Jeff, now the
Yeah.
question is, where does he go? I think I'm in the minority, but maybe it's just the way I was raised in the business. But
Yeah.
we would not take him in the supplemental draft, and we would not sign him as a free agent. There are people in this league that I really respect that think that if he does go into the supplemental draft, he will not get past the second round. I will be shocked if that happens.
Well, we'll get to that in a second. I'm going to circle back here to something you said about the, just a general idea of the supplemental draft and where he might go in that sense. So they don't NFL does not have to hold supplemental draft every season, right? They have not done it in quite a long time now.
Right, right.
You mentioned that they're going to investigate Sorsby and figure out, sort of on their own where he's at with his addiction, what he's done with his gambling history, and whether it's going to happen again. Um, What's that gonna look like? Because he won't be, suspended in the NFL, right? Nothing he did was while he was playing in the NFL. So it's just a matter of understanding where his addiction is at. It's understanding how deep it went. Is this information the NFL will share with the rest of the teams? Because I would imagine the teams that are interested are gonna do their own background work on Sorsby as well. What's that process like?
They do have you can call the NFL does have you can call their security office and get information they have, but most teams are doing their own work on it, and you have to be real careful, Jeff, because the league does not want a collusion suit coming. If there's anything that comes out that the league has influenced teams not to take him at a certain level or not to sign him, can't do that. You can't do that. That's collusion. So they can't get involved in that. The NFL has a great way. There is a message there, and this is a really serious deal, Jeff. And I think that I worked with a guy years ago when I was a sports writer in a separate life. There was a guy named Vito Stellino. He was a sports writer for the
Mm,
Baltimore Sun. Anybody that ever met him will never forget him, but he was an expert on the NFL. And his saying, and this was some 40 years ago, was, Marty, the NFL is on top, but it doesn't always stay like this. It's always changes. And we both talked about we were the age where when I was 10, Major League Baseball was the king. My
yeah,
point to all this is the only thing that can bring the NFL down, in my opinion, is gambling. And there is intense pressure on the league office, on everybody in every team facility in the league to make sure that there is no lack of trust in the league because of gambling, because it has
yeah,
changed so much the last 5 years, Jeff, and it's public trust. And the NFL is the greatest marketing public relation arm in the history of in American business in my mind, because they know how to work the PR angle, the perception, how they're viewed. All the military celebrations and everything they do is geared to make it a wholesome product. Gambling is the one thing that will threaten this, and I know they are very aware of it, and that's why it's so intriguing to me of how this is gonna happen, because this is really the highest profile gambling case we've had, as far as associated
mm.
somebody who might be in the NFL.
Okay, so you mentioned that if they do not allow Sorsby to enter supplemental draft. There'll be a lawsuit potentially from his side and the
Potentially.
NFLPA-ish.
I would
But
guess.
but he's not a member of the NFLPA though. So why would they want to be party to this if the gambling accusations are as credible as we might think?
Because just like we're talking about with the NFL and Brendan Sorsby, with the NFLPA, this isn't just about Brendan Sorsby. It's about every player in the league. Because the precedent you set here, I mean, is this gonna happen again? I I mean, you would think, right? I don't know. I mean, just human nature. But if it does happen again, the NFLPA has got to set a precedent of how they're going to deal with these issues as well. And the NFL and the NFLPA coming together. And that's the answer to me. I mean, I think those sides have to come together because this is the most critical issue in my mind to the game right now. It's the NFL right now. It's how is this the whole way the gambling on the NFL has increased over the last, say, 5 years or so. It adds another very dangerous dimension, and the NFL has done everything to handle it the right way and as good as they can, but this is a challenge.
I've discussed this before on this podcast, and it's worth mentioning again. The harshest punishment the NFL will give a player is when they gamble on the NFL, right? We've seen them give punishments to players that have gone to prison, right? They've suspended those players, and those players were out of the league, but not as long as gambling, right? And unfortunately, if you have a criminal past as well, you might not go to jail. They have a certain number of games they'll suspend you for that, right? But gambling is taken seriously because its integrity of the game concern more than those other things. You disagree with that? I totally understand, but that's the way the NFL feels. Coming up next, we'll talk more Sorsby as an evaluation. But first, on DraftKings, number one pick of next year's draft, the market's already up. Arch Manning, Dante Moore, CJ Carr, lots of quarterbacks, Lenore Sellers, Darian Mensah. This is why, Marty, I'm not quite sure that the run on Brendan Sorsby will be as big as we think. There's a lot of quarterbacks in this next class that are going to be very good, and teams are going to have an eye toward those players in the evaluation of Brendan Sorsby. We'll talk more Sorsby next year. Jim Show, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We're back here on the GM Shuffle, more Sorsby discussion. Probably it till the supplemental draft time. His workout is July 10th. It's going to be attended by everyone. I by the way, Marty, one of my favorite pre-draft process things is on a Saturday night, there'll be a big college football game. And there'll be a draft, for ESPN, a draft reporter that'll be like, there's 17 scouts in attendance. Yeah, that's their job. Yeah, of course they're there. I sent it to a buddy of mine. I'm like, oh, look, they're scouting. They're doing their job. Just want to make sure they're there. I always love those things. But there'll be all 32 teams supposedly will be at his pro day July 10th. Okay, so Marty, when last season ended, college football season ended, we started talking about potential quarterbacks in this draft. I do not recall Brendan Sorsby's name being discussed as a potential first or second round pick. Now, I think he immediately went to Texas Tech, so there really wasn't much discussion of that possibility. But there wasn't like this big clamoring of like, man, he should come out. He should come out. He's going the first round. Now, if he would have come out, would he have gone the first round? Maybe, right? I don't know. No gambling associated to his name.
We don't know yet. Probably
no
later in the second.
Yeah.
Probably no later in the second.
Yeah, right. Like he would have been a higher draft pick than maybe we think. And remember, guys, it's important to note that I see people say, well, Cincinnati's film and wasn't great, and so game wasn't great. Josh Allen's film was terrible at Wyoming. Like it doesn't matter. Like the projection matters, right? Like what you project out to be matters a little more than the overall production. You have. I remember watching Josh Allen. Maybe he's the outlier. Certainly fair, Marty is the outlier. I'm like, this guy, he completes 50% of passes in Wyoming. Like, what are we doing here? But the arm talent showed, right? The athletic talent showed there. The competitive nature showed at Wyoming. Like your college film doesn't have to be great. It's just a projection of what you can be in the NFL, right? Especially at quarterback, because you might run an offense in college that's nothing like the NFL. So it's projecting out. So I think it's unfair to say, well, he had this bad game and that bad game. Okay, he might have played bad in those games, but what's the reason why? However, I think it's ludicrous. I saw something today on ESPN on their morning show. Like, man, he's got higher ceiling than Mendoza and Simpson. What? I don't get it, Marty. I don't see that in him. I think best case it was probably a late first, second round pick in this past draft. And now you add in the gambling stuff. I see him going no earlier than the fourth round supplemental draft.
You know what's so ironic, Jeff, is that he's only out here because of the gambling stuff, right? And I think his stock, we're talking about him like we're talking about him now, compared to what you were saying before, because of the one word that every team, everybody's looking for: value. So they say, okay, here's a guy, dual threat quarterback. We're not sure, if he's be a potential starter or not. But listen, if we could get this guy in a low second round or third round or even later if he falls, and I think he's gonna fall, but, it's value. I think that's why plus, it's middle of June. NFL is a 12-month year business, but this is kind of a downtime. So everybody's writing about Brendan Sorsby right now. He's the main story, and I just I don't know. Sure, he'd be a great value as a player if you could get him second round or later. But that's just not the issue. His talent is not the issue. We don't know where he would rank in next year's draft. And
Yeah.
maybe that's the tack the NFL takes is, listen, we are not going to let you go into the supplemental because we haven't had enough time to sort through everything. We go through it, you go into next year's draft. Now he is evaluated with all the other quarterbacks and see what happens. But it does give them a year where he's going through treatment or whatever.
Yeah.
If they, if they indeed can have a team draft him with a league suspension attached to it coming in, which I think they could do. I think.
So I guess the league suspending him. Why would the league suspend him? This didn't happen while he was in the NFL.
Yeah, Jeff, it doesn't matter. I would always tell our scouts this in draft meetings when we were talking about a guy with medical issues or character issues. And I would say, you know what? They'll say, "Oh, he's fine. He might not do anything." So that's great. They say other people get in trouble. Yeah, but if somebody got in trouble and didn't have a history, we had no way of knowing. So we took him. It was the wrong, he got
Yeah.
in trouble, but there was no history there. When you take a guy that, let's say you take a guy that's had a DUI or 2 DUIs, and then you take him and you bring him in and he gets a DUI, everybody's gonna say, "What did you expect?" So I do think what happens before you take a player does factor into it. It factors into the public perception of the move, and it just factors into how the owner looks at how you're making decisions. Now, this Brendan Sorsby decision, Jeff, to me, this is an owner level decision. I mean,
Yes, it has to be.
the
Yeah.
general manager, the head coach, they can all give their opinions of the player, but it's not going to be about that. This is an owner level decision. This is really intriguing to me, just knowing the inner workings and knowing how crucial and critical good character is. And now you throw in the gambling aspect of it. I'm just going to be really curious to see what happens here.
All right, last thing on Sorsby, and then we'll transition to other football news. Um, the more I think about this, the more I think a potential landing spot is actually going to be a good team that's never going to draft high enough for a new quarterback eventually, right? So, like the Lions, right? I'm not saying the Lions are going to do it, but Marty, like they're never going to draft high enough to replace Jared Goff. I can see them saying, you know what, Sorsby, fourth, fifth round, sixth round, like I'm in on that. The Eagles, other teams. Am I off for thinking that the potential landing spot might be a team that doesn't need a quarterback in this, right now? Because again, the Jets and Browns and Cardinals can just wait for the draft next year. They don't need Sorsby right now.
Right. Right. And that's my thing is how many teams are gonna just be out from the start? We said it
A
goes
lot,
to the
half,
owner, right? It's an owner's
half,
decision.
more than half.
I would think more than half, and
Yeah,
it's not about his talent or how good a quarterback he might be able to play. Now, what you're saying is, you're right. It's all about value. Okay. So now, and I think back to my discussions with owners, it's about value and the organization's reputation, the league's reputation. Okay. This is what I think some general managers and coaches would hear from an owner. I know I could think of one owner I work with that I know I would hear it from. Certainly, there has to be another player on the draft board that can help our football team. I just think that the gambling issue is such a sensitive and critical topic
Yeah.
to the league that I don't know whether outside we're looking and saying, "Oh, a team's gonna go ahead and do it anyway." They may very well. But just being inside in the inner workings is not gonna surprise me if he falls, and I wouldn't be shocked if he didn't get drafted. But I am in the minority. People I talk to around the league think that he's gonna go, fairly high.
If you like what we're hearing here in the GM Shuffle, is even more VSiN Pro. Any splits, power ranking, sharp analysis, all for not only first month. Go to vsin.com to check out VSiN Pro. All right, Marty. The NFL officials and the NFL reached a collective bargaining agreement. They're gonna no replacement refs, which was a complete disaster. But one of the new things that came out of this agreement was the NFL is going to create a practice squad of up to 12 game officials this season. Practice squad officials could replace a game official due to injury or poor performance, and they're going to send these officials to the city. Like they're going to be on site, and maybe determining on Saturday to switch out the officials. What do you think about this idea of not replacement officials of practice squad officials?
I think it's another move that is just related somehow to the gambling aspect of it, Jeff, because listen, again, another greatest fear, right? And when I say the way that gambling and betting has affected the game, I mean, been in offices with coaches that head coaches saying, man, I don't want to make a decision and somebody think that, we're trying to throw the game. And I go out in the parking lot and, get shot by an angry fan, an angry gambler. As far as the officials goes, that's that might be the greatest concern is it's got to be anytime there's a controversial call, the whole panic's gonna go. Everybody's gonna go, "Oh, was that intentional?" Is it was because of the gambling aspect of it. So I think that the 12-game practice squad officials, I wouldn't be surprised to see more changes made if during the season, like if there's an official that's been under criticism or bad calls. But I do think that again, this is a product of how the NFL is trying to protect itself against the dangers that the gambling on the NFL creates for them. The benefits far outweigh it, but there are issues and dangers that they have to try to prepare for. They are the masters of looking forward, planning ahead, and I think that this is all indirectly tied in to that part of it.
All right, coming up next, we're going to get to surprise Super Bowl teams. But first, continue the discussion, Marty, on the officiating here. All the officials that call holding, replace them. Get them out of here. Enough holdings for you guys. I'm just curious, what would be considered bad officiating? The officials make mistakes. We know that. I don't think they're terrible enough to replace on poor performance. I'm curious, did you get grades back on officials from the league office? How did you know if an official was good or bad?
The way it used to work, and I'm sure it still does, no grades on officials. The head coach would send in a list of plays that he thought were bad calls, and he would get the answer back. I would say over 30 years, there were probably 15, 20 times I've told a head coach, "Why do you keep doing this?" Because they always send it back saying they didn't make a mistake. So that was the process before. That may have changed. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, look, again, there are officials that I think are maybe worse than other ones, but an official during a game is just watching the quarterback and the left tackle. They're not the head guy's not doing a ton. I mean, obviously, if you miss a call here and there, if you're the umpire, the line judge, or the back judge, or something, I get that, and certainly they get graded every week. I'm not sure we can even tell you who's bad. I'm sure fan bases have guys they don't like. That's a little different than referees that are bad. So I'm kind of curious how they implement these replacement, not I can't replacement, practice squad officials, Marty. I was a practice squad guy. I should have some sympathy for practice squad officials. All right, we're going to talk now about surprise Super Bowl teams next here on Jim Shuffle, presented by DraftKings Network.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
All right, we're back here on the GM Shuffle. We're going to talk about unlikely or surprise Super Bowl teams here. I'll just give you the odds right now, Marty, on DraftKings. So the Rams are the favorite. They're 5.5 to 1. That's plus 550. Then Buffalo, 10 to 1. Baltimore, also 10 to 1. Seattle, the reigning champions, 11 to 1. Then there's a sort of a drop a little bit to Philly, 16 to 1, with New England, both 16 to 1. And then Kansas City, also 16 to 1. So you have that cluster right there. The Chargers, Texans, Packers, Niners, Lions, Broncos, Bengals just kind of continues to go down. So I think we all agree that the first 6 teams here, Rams, Bills, Ravens, Seahawks, Eagles, and Patriots, would not be considered unlikely. The discussion starts with the Kansas City Chiefs and whether or not, Marty, we can consider them just from the base level of this discussion. Do they qualify as an unlikely or surprise Super Bowl caliber team? I would say it depends where you think they are, and that's a personal opinion of yours, right? Like if you think that this team is basically done as the dynasty they've had, then getting back to Super Bowl and winning it would be a surprise. If you think they still have something left, then probably not a surprise. I think they're still in this window right now, Marty, as long as Travis Kelce and Chris Jones are still there with Patrick Mahomes. Like they're still in the window. So probably would not be unlikely for them to make it back. How do you view Kansas City starting this discussion here? Are they allowed to be considered an unlikely Super Bowl champion?
Yeah, so you got Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes, you're eligible to be considered. And I do think that they will come if Mahomes is ready for the opener. They're going to be very competitive. But Geoff, I think one thing, and John Clayton, God rest his soul, he was a genius on the NFL. He covered it as closely as anybody that I've ever known. And he would always talk about schedule. He said the schedule is so hard, Marty, that they're not going to have a chance. They're a good team, but their schedule works against them. The Chiefs being in the West, I mean, you got the Broncos, the Chargers, the Chiefs. We could make a case for all 3 of those teams to have a chance to get to the Super Bowl, couldn't we?
We could. John Clay, by the way, he told me this one time, and I've actually studied this a little bit. It's very true. He told me he said, "You ever heard the rule of 150?" I said no.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He said,
Yeah.
if your offensive line combined age is over 150, your offensive line's gonna stink. And it's true.
Yep.
He told me this like 5 years ago. Every time I look at like offensive lines in the season, I look at the age, and all the ones combined age over 150, they fall off a cliff very fast.
Geoff,
Very fast.
I would always get a call in the summer. Marty, you're at 145. You better start doing something with that offensive line because it's getting too old. It's not going to compete. I mean, John Clayton covered this league as closely as detailed with statistics. He had every statistic to back up his opinion.
Yeah.
And I've missed him for a long time. He was great for this league. But yeah, I mean, I just think that the schedule, the division schedule.
Yeah.
Do those 3 teams kind of knock themselves off as far as getting
Yeah.
home field for the playoffs and hurt each other? I don't know, but it's certainly you can make the argue with a Raiders team that is going to be better. It's going to be better and it's going to get better as the year goes. You really could argue whether that's the strongest division in the NFL or not.
Okay. So we are, I think, out of the Chiefs as a surprise unlikely team, which is interesting because the Chargers are 17 to 1 to win the Super Bowl. They have the 8th best odds in the NFL, and the Chiefs are 16 to 1. So they're right near each other. The Broncos had home field advantage last year in the AFC West. So like you can certainly do that at the AFC West. I think the Chargers are the first team, Marty, that would be an unlikely Super Bowl champion. And that is because they haven't done it yet. They haven't made a conference championship game. I mean, look,
Right.
New England hadn't done yet either, and Seattle hadn't done yet either, but those franchises have, right? Like they're like John Schneider, Seattle's GM, had already won a Super Bowl, right? Like
Yeah.
think about New
Yeah.
England. Vrabel had won a Super Bowl not as a coach, but as a player. Josh McDaniels has won many Super Bowls as an OC. Robert Kraft, the owner, they know how to travel the Super Bowl. They know how to be there. They know what it means. The Chargers don't at all. Harbaugh's been to one as a coach, right? Mike McDaniel, I don't think has been to a Super Bowl, maybe his assistant at some point. There, so it's more just that yeah, they have decent odds to get there if you stack up in the NFL. They haven't done it before, and more importantly, Herbert has not played well in the postseason. So for them to get to that level, he would have to up his game, which I think we both agree he's going to do. So the Chargers, to me, start the discussion as an unlikely Super Bowl team.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is and they've gotten better, and Mike McDaniel coming in and Jim Harbaugh, they got decimated on the offensive line last year, took them out of everything. But to me, that's the key, and it's the same as another team the Bengals we'll talk about here a little later is that they got to keep Justin Herbert standing upright, Geoff, and he's taken a lot of hits over the year. And I know Jim Harbaugh was very concerned at the end of the year about the amount of hits. So they have
Yeah,
to keep him healthy. But I think that boy, you talk about windows. This is a time that they have to make a
yeah.
move and for the Chargers, but for Justin Herbert, because he's been in long enough, he has got to make a deep run, in my opinion. And if they stay healthy, I think they got the talent to do so.
Looking at the roster right now, obviously Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt being back healthy is important. They added Tyler Biadasz, who I think is a really good addition at center. Cole Strange, left guard might be a battle between a couple guys drafted and Trevor Penning. They went and got Alex Harkey in the draft. So like they're good there if they stay healthy. Wide receiver depth,
Yeah,
I think, is a little bit of a question after Ladd McConkey, but they have some talented young players. I just think the addition of Mike McDaniels is a huge boost to the Chargers team. So
huge,
uh,
huge.
we have them here as sort of the first team on this list. The next team, Marty, um, I, the Lions are 19-1. All right. Um, I don't think they count as a surprise unlikely team because they were so close 2 years ago. But after last year, it does feel like it would be surprising if they made it back. It's a very talented team, though. Are they eligible for this?
Of course. Yeah, I mean, the Commanders made the NFC Championship game 2 years ago, and I think they're eligible for this at this point as well. I definitely think the Lions are because and again, we've talked a lot about it, and I hope I'm not being unfair, but I think I can be fair by saying that, when you lose an offensive mind like Ben Johnson, it 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 hurts you. You take a step back, and it takes a
Yep.
little bit. So I have to see the Lions offense with Dan Campbell, with how they're calling plays. With Jared Goff, who isn't a real mobile quarterback, and we know what most of the league is like there as far as mobility goes. I don't know. I look at their division. I know Chicago's not getting a lot of love, but I don't know why. I think that they have the quarterback coach combination. They have to improve. I like the way they need to improve defensively. They need more weapons, but I think that they are a very good team. The Packers are always gonna be
Yeah.
there. And so again, it's just like what we talked about with the Chiefs. I think do the Lions get through their division and win their division? And I just don't see it with the Vikings. We have no idea with Kyler Murray and Kevin O'Connell, but I don't see them winning this division. And I like them.
Yeah.
I love Dan Campbell, and I hope they do well. But I just don't see them taking a step up. I think they level out right now.
Next up on the list, and we both agree on this team, is the Bengals at 20-1 to win the Super Bowl. It's very clearly Joe Burrow driven. Like, I'm a Chiefs fan, okay? And I am most worried about Joe Burrow coming to Arrowhead in the playoffs. Like, he's the one I'm most worried about. Not Josh Allen, not Lamar Jackson. It's Joe Burrow. He's done it before too. He's won an Arrowhead, but he's so smooth in the postseason, man. Like, nothing faces this guy. They just can't make the postseason. They've only made the postseason twice, and he made an AFC Championship game in a Super Bowl. The defense big additions this offseason, trying to fix that defense because that cost them many years. The Jonathan Allen and Dexter Lawrence, as we know, Maffa as well, Brian Cook, like they went and drafted players, Cassius Howe, the rest of the passer, like they went and got themselves some good football players. I like Takario Davis from Arizona, right? Or was it Washington? I was either Arizona or Washington. I think we have both teams actually. He's a good football player as well. So I like what they did there. It's not that unlikely, I think, if they were to make it back, considering their postseason success when they've been in the playoffs. I think just making the playoffs, Marty, would be the big surprise. They just haven't done it a lot.
They haven't. And, coming out of their camps, and listen, it's all optimism out of mini camps and OTAs, but Joe Burrow seems excited. Listen, number one, is he going to be able to stay healthy? And can their offensive line keep them healthy? And I'm interested in your opinion here, Geoff, because I think the offensive line might be one of their weakest areas.
It's not good.
It's not very good. And when your number one prerogative is to protect your quarterback who's been knocked out. I mean, when he plays and he plays all season, if he plays 17 games this year, they're going to be in the hunt. They're going to be a factor. I mean, they could win the division. I mean, again, now I look at this division and you look at Cleveland, you look at Pittsburgh. Everybody's saying Baltimore's coming back, and I think they may, but still first-year head coach, we don't know. Yeah. And so the Bengals have a chance to win this division. And if they win the division, get you on field first game.
Coming up next, we'll talk more surprise teams. But first, Marty, the Bengals offensive line is a problem. And they've tried, right? Orlando Brown, they drafted Fairchild. They went and signed Reisner. Mims is getting better. It just hasn't worked out as well as they thought it would. Maybe it's coaching. I just think it's philosophy. I don't like hearing Joe Burrow talk about being okay taking sacks. Like, it's not okay. Right. It's just not okay.
No, it's not.
You have to avoid, you have to build your offense around avoiding Joe Burrow getting hit. That's your offense has to be, your passing game has to be built around that. And if you don't, he's going to continue to get hurt. I hate it. He's a fantastic football player. But think about the offense around the NFL. They're the best ones. Their quarterbacks don't get hit this much.
No, it can't. And it's happened too many years, Geoff. I mean, I just, that is the one concern. But if he stays healthy, they're going to be a real factor. They'll be dangerous.
All right. Maybe the Vikings will be a real factor. We'll talk about them next. Your Team Shuffle, presented by Nothing's Out.
You're listening to the GM Shuffle, presented by DraftKings and VSiN.
We're talking about the Vikings first, but we still have Cowboys to talk about, who I just oh man, there's keep something inside of me that just can't stand back in the Cowboys. Not because I hate them, because they always burn and the Washington Commanders here. Let's go Vikings first, because they're 50-1, and this feels quite simply an endorsement of Kevin O'Connell working with Kyler Murray, right? And I know they haven't announced a starter yet. I don't think it's going to be J.J. McCarthy. I made this point many times, is there's not a lot of practice time anymore, right? Not a lot of reps in training camp, not a lot of reps in the NFL preseason. And Kyler Murray is just going to be better than J.J. McCarthy in practice. Like, just is. Be better in the preseason. So you have to basically throw that all out, Marty, and say, yeah, you know what, we'll start McCarthy because whatever reason we want to start McCarthy over the guy who's been better in training camp and in the NFL preseason. So Kyler Murray, the talent is all there. We know it's all there. He has yet to put it together for large stretches of his career. And let's just say the first half of the season is fine, right? It does take 8 to 12 weeks to finally feel good about a new offense or defense. Let's just say, Marty, like the last 6 weeks of the season, starts playing a lot better. Starts playing confidence, starts making the plays that are extra in the games. All of a sudden, they enter the postseason, and they're feeling really good. Their roster, offensive line, check. Wide receiver, check. Running back, I think it's fine. Jordan Jones is getting a little bit older, but they have Mason. It's fine. I don't think you need a great running back to win anyways. Tight end, good. Defense, we know, very good, right? Pass rush, check. Linebackers, like all of it's good, Marty. It does feel like the Vikings are a team that can make a deep postseason run. if Kyler Murray hits that groove at the end of the season?
I would set the under over for training camp as far as how many times a day is Kevin O'Connell going to get the ask the question, how is Kyler Murray picking up the offense? I mean, because of what's been
Every day?
written in the past about Kyler Murray, right? That is going to be the whole focus, in my opinion, of the summer. How's he picking it up? If Kevin Connell can come out and have Kyler Murray operate at a high level coming in this first year in his offense, it's just gonna only confirm how good I think he is as a coach. But because I think he's that good as a coach, I think it could happen. I'm very intrigued to watch how this combination does. He's going to start, Geoff. Athletic ability, he's got everything you need. Now it's getting him in a system that he can thrive in. And that's what great offense coordinators, head coaches do. I think Kevin O'Connell is very close to that category if he's not already in it. The Vikings are a team that their offensive line, I think it's one of the best in the league. I think they have
Yeah,
talent on defense.
they do.
They have one of the best wide receivers in the league. They've always had a talented team over the last 5, 7, 8 years, but you need that quarterback position. And I'm telling you, Kyler Murray can step in here and really make a difference. So I don't cross them off as having a chance of winning the division. I think that they are very, very well built around that running back spot, and I just think they have the right head coach. And if anybody can get it out of Kyler Murray, I think Kevin O'Connell can.
He absolutely can, and that's why I think we're high on them. All right, Marty, the Dallas Cowboys, I think, are way too low. They're 25-1. They're behind the Bengals, like a decent price behind the Bengals. Um, it's a good football team, Marty. A very good football
Yes, it
team,
is.
and I feel like every time I'm on the Cowboys, I get burned because Dak gets hurt or something's been silly like that. But think about this. Okay, quarterback, right? Dak Prescott is a good quarterback when he's been healthy. All right.
Mhm.
Wide receiver. Which wide receiver room you taking over George Pickens and CeeDee Lamb in the NFL right now? Not many, right?
No,
Offensive line, all pro left guard, very good left tackle, good center, good right guard, and an underrated right tackle, in my opinion, Terrence Steele. Like a legitimately probably top 5 offensive line when healthy. It's not even debatable, I think. Tight end's good
I
enough, right? Ferguson. What they do on defense? They put some work, right? Quinton Williams trade, Kenny Clark trade, Rashawn Gary. I think a tad overrated, but he's still a good football player, right? They went and got D Winners. They went and got Kobe Durant. They went and got Caleb Downs in the draft, and they went and got 2 pass rushers right in the draft in Lawrence and Overton. Like defense will be middle of the pack. All you need is middle of the pack. That's all you need with that offense. It's a very good football team. I think 25-1 is way too low for the Cowboys. I like them a lot, man.
I think they're my pick, Geoff, to win. I mean, the way they've improved this defense, their offense is so good. You know what? I think a lot of people. You said something, and I was thinking this coming in is you're very reluctant to say anything good about the Cowboys or pick them because there has always been such a groundswell behind them, and they haven't produced. They haven't done anything. They have approached everything differently this year. I think they approached the draft differently. The way they handled the George Pickens contract. Now, I read a story the other day. I don't know whether it was some guy just spitballing or trying to start a rumor, but he was talking about, would the Cowboys trade Pickens because he's on the last year to a team if they were offered enough. I would not. I think this is their year to make the run, and I think that Jerry Jones would probably feel the same way. And I'm like you, the combinations of those 2 receivers are very hard to beat. But this is what I really like. Okay, and we look to see how last year uh, Mike McDonald's second year, right? So this Brian Schottenheimer, second year. Now, I look at Brian Schottenheimer. I have great respect because I was with the San Diego Chargers for 6 years. We played the Chiefs twice a year. Marty Schottenheimer was the head coach, one of the best head coaches that has coached in this league. He really is, and he was just he knew football, but he was such a team manager. And I read the other week that Brian Schottenheimer now, and some people can construe this as a positive or a negative, but he said he's going to get more involved. He's sitting in the special teams meetings. He's sitting in the defensive meetings. He's still going to call the plays for the Cowboys. So obviously that's a lot to ask, but his dad did it. He grew up, he saw his father do it. And it's all about trusting the right people, having people that you can delegate to, but you're on the top. You have your thumb on the pulse of the team. He's going to do that this year. I thought he did a phenomenal job coming in coaching last year. Talent-wise, they've always they were a Super Bowl team offensively last year. This year, with all the moves you mentioned on defense, I think they're a Super Bowl team this year. I really like the Cowboys this year.
Let's get to another team in that division, the Washington Commanders. Look, it's quite simple. Jay Daniels was really, really good. Last year was a down year for them. They were in the NFC Championship game the year before that. Their roster is good. There's some better positions than other ones, but the core pieces are there, and they redid their defense, which was a problem last season. And I trust Dan Quinn to evaluate players on defense, and I think they have, 7 new starters on defense potentially. And if you include sort of a nickel player as a starter, because we know that they play nickel a lot in the NFL. So just a lot of new, and it makes sense for Washington to have a bounce back season.
I really like them this year too. And that's the thing. I mentioned it before. The only thing with Dallas, the Commanders, Philly, and then you have the Giants with John Harbaugh's first year. But this is a really good division as well. I like the Commanders. They have gotten younger and faster on defense. And offensively, remember 2 years ago, Jay Daniels as a rookie, they go to Philadelphia for the NFC Championship game. I think they got one of the better offensive lines in the league. I would like to see them add one more weapon at receiver, but they're good there. And I tell you, one of my favorite offseason moves, and Geoff, I disagree when you say you can win without a running back. I think a running back's very important. I thought running back, they want a different style running back now, the Commanders, and obviously featuring him in the passing game. Austin Eckler gave them that 2 years ago. Rashad White, who they signed from Tampa, I thought is a great signing. He fills that pass receiver role, and while he's not a quick twitch, dynamic inside runner, he does have some physicality at 215 pounds, runs high, runs a little high. Not going to get a lot of yards, but he can get those hard 2-3 yards. I think that's what the Commanders need, is some kind of physical presence in that backfield to go with what they've got. So I really like that signing. I think that if this defense gets better, which it should, it's much faster, it's younger. This offense, if Jaden Daniels stays healthy, this offense has a chance to be one of the top 5 in the league, in my opinion. So they're a factor too. The East is gonna be a battle.
There are 5 teams at the bottom of DraftKings odds. All right. Giants, Saints, Panthers, Titans, Falcons, Raiders, Jets, Browns, Dolphins, Cardinals. Out of those 10 teams, which one would you pick to play in a conference championship game?
Well, I'm going to tell you the one I picked, I think has the best chance to win their division. Don't know where they could go any farther than that, but New Orleans Saints. I'm going to take the Saints with Kellen Moore and Tyler Shugg in their second year together. And they, again, they have good personnel and they build their roster the right way. I'm going to take the Saints. I don't think they get the championship game, but I think I'm going to take them as a possible surprise. Even though I really like the Panthers in the NFC South, Saints would be a possibility.
That would have been my choice, the Panthers. I think they just have a better roster than New Orleans right now.
Not by a lot. I'm sorry, I didn't know they were on your list.
No. I'm just looking at the bottom of these odds and trying to pick up maybe a surprise team. We always love the 90-1 team. 90-1, and we could win a lot of money. You bet $10 and you win 900. Like you could do it. So I think the Panthers are that surprise team as well. Next week, maybe we'll hit on some teams that we think will be the opposite team that is going to be good, that we think is going to be bad. There's always news and notes, man. I mean, the NFL keeps going, Marty. And so we'll have more stuff for you guys next week. Maybe we'll have some more news on Sorsby. I doubt it. And we'll talk more about the process with the supplemental draft. Also, as we get into these months, how does a general manager approach the season? How do players start preparing? We hit July 4th very soon. That used to be sort of the mental cutoff for a lot of us as far as like time to lock in, right? So we'll have a show for you guys next Monday. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Please go rate, review, subscribe on YouTube. We always appreciate those comments. I'll try to get back to you guys and answer those. Take care, everyone. Talk to you guys next week.